When he was just 7 years old, his dad took a shotgun, stuck it in his mouth, and said, "You're not worth the bullet." He went on to become one of the most legendary UFC fighters, the first ever lightweight champion, to this day still the youngest lightweight champion. But one day, when his dad, a violent drunk, was beating he and his mom, they went and hid in a bedroom, and he promised himself, "I'm going to get so famous that I can tell the world how bad my dad is." His name, Little Evil, Jens Pulver. Not because he was wicked was he called Little Evil, because he fought almost like he was possessed as a UFC fighter. It was because he was wounded. There was something darker happening. He wasn't battling in the cage. It wasn't the opponent that was across from him that he was fighting. It wasn't even his dad. It was this war in his soul. It's the same battle that we're all fighting, men. Here's the twist. The world won't celebrate your healing because the world fears healing, wholeness, true masculinity. Just ask Jesus. They canceled him. Today, we continue in our series called The True Gentleman. In the last video, I was talking about how there's two pictures of man in the Bible. The first man, passivity, and then throwing somebody else under the bus, protecting self-preservation, toxicity. The first Adam, in Genesis chapter 1, 2, 3, he is a picture of toxic masculinity, but he's also a picture of what the world defines as gentle, a lack of strength. The second Adam, man, in the Bible, Romans chapter 5, verse 19, is Jesus. So he's not the second man that ever existed, but he's the next picture of manhood we get. A true man who's willing to step forward for something greater than himself. A man who's willing to have the strongest man that's ever been on this planet, strongest man in the world, but it's under control. That's gentleness. And he even calls himself gentle. He and Moses, men in the Bible that are described as gentle, to the strongest men that ever lived. And Jesus, showing what it is sometimes to overturn a table, sometimes to turn the other cheek, sometimes to remain silent, sometimes to confront, even to call a name. But the world, when he brought healing, closed blind eyes, raised the dead, he wasn't crucified because he was weak. He wasn't crucified because he was nice. If you think about the way that oftentimes Jesus filtered through our American dream, filtered through our politics, filtered through all that stuff, the one we present, who would ever reject that guy? He was crucified because he was uncontrollable. When power shows up unfiltered, it makes people nervous. Here's how the world responded when they encountered Jesus. Just think through the Bible. His own family, when he's teaching, just go through the Gospel of Mark. Mark chapter 3, he's teaching, and his mom and his brothers show up because they say he's lost his mind. What about Peter? Peter has just, Mark chapter 8, professed. As they're walking into Caesarea Philippi, he's professed, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And then Jesus starts to talk about his mission. And Jesus says to that same guy who's waffling and wavering, "Get behind me, Satan." He doesn't think that Peter has become Satan in that moment. "But you're trying to deviate me from the mission of God because you don't like, this doesn't fit your box. You don't like how this is going to go." What about his own hometown? Luke chapter 4, first sermon Jesus preaches, comes into his hometown synagogue, sits down, unrolls the scroll from Isaiah, starts reading from Isaiah 60. Everyone's like, he's from here. This is our guy. They're excited until they're not. Until he says something that doesn't fit their paradigm. Until he makes them uncomfortable because of his power. And they take him out to a cliff and they want to stone him to death. Luke 4, read it yourself. What the religious leaders, after he raises Lazarus from the dead, they say the most crazy thing. They say, if we don't stop him, everyone's going to believe in him. Yeah. And do you know what that means? That means that your power might not be as great as you think it is. That means that your control might actually be an illusion. That means that your sin, you're going to be held accountable for. See, Jesus was crucified not because he failed, but because he succeeded. Because they couldn't contain him. They couldn't tame him. They couldn't control him. And so they tried to cancel him. Probably my favorite of all the stories of how people responded to Jesus. It's sad, but it's my favorite because it's so what we see happen in churches all across the world all the time. We either filter Jesus and recreate the Jesus that we're comfortable with that looks like us. He made us in his image, but yet we're trying to return the favor, not by reflecting his image, but by trying to recreate him in ours. That's deadly. How about Mark chapter 5? Jesus shows up, and there's this guy that they can't control because he's demon possessed. And so they do what we try to do in this world with people that we can't control. We try to silence them. And so they put them out in the caves, and they try to hold them and restrain them with chains, not cure them. Let's just try to control them. They can't. And then Jesus comes, a crazy conversation. We are legion. Like there's thousands of demons in this guy. And with the word of his mouth, Jesus says, go. And they flee. Commercial break. Next scene, they come out. The man is sitting there, calm, clothed, and in his right mind. He's cured. And what do you think the town does? Celebrates? Throws a party? At Thanksgiving? Hey, Jesus, come see some of the other sick people? Nope. Mark chapter 5, verse 17. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. They begged Jesus to go, not because he failed, but because of his power. And when unfiltered power shows up, people don't know what to do. So he healed what they gave up on. But it messed with their economy, their control, and their comfort. People didn't reject Jesus because he was weak. They didn't reject Jesus because he was nice. They didn't reject Jesus because he was a baby in a manger. They didn't reject Jesus because he's the version that we filter and put on Instagram. They rejected Jesus because he's too strong. Because if Jesus is king, that means you're not. If Jesus has authority, that means that your authority gets checked. If Jesus defines masculinity, as the Bible clearly shows that he does, then your passivity gets exposed. And so what do they say? If we don't stop him, everyone will believe in him. And then, do you know what the next part of that verse is? John chapter 11, Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. He's got power, which is the word of his mouth, over life and death. And then the religious leaders, they get together. People are coming, they're believing. Revival's breaking out. It says, if we don't stop him, everyone's going to believe in him. And then the next part of the verse, and we'll lose our place. Translation, if we don't stop him, we're going to lose our power. And that's the truth about real power. It doesn't heal the sick. It reveals sick systems. And the people who benefit from sick systems will always reject the Savior. And listen to this. If you're a man of power, you've been following our channel for a little while, maybe you've done some of those inner battles that Jens Pulver was expressing in the ring. If you know what it is to have God's power under control in your life, and a prayer in Ephesians chapter 3, now to him who's able to do immeasurably more than we could ever ask or imagine, according to the power that's at work within us, is evident in your life, expect to be misunderstood. Your family might think you've lost it. Your friends might say you've changed. Your community might try to tell you to tone it down, but don't confuse their criticism with their conviction. They tried to cancel Jesus, but he didn't cancel the mission. In Matthew chapter 26, they're coming with torches, and Jesus says, rise, let's go. He didn't flinch. He said, rise, hey, the battle's here. They're ready to cancel me. Let's do this. The world doesn't need more nice guys. The world needs true gentlemen. Strength under control. Warriors who rise up, who are dangerous for good, on God's mission, who don't shrink when others' insecurities try to put them into a box. It's not your job to fit somebody else's comfort zone. It's your job to stand firm in who God says you are, and you weren't made to be tamed. You were made to be transformed. So here's the question. When the boldness that you have for Christ makes other people uncomfortable, will you retreat? Will you remain silent? Or will you say like Jesus, rise up, let's go? That's what a true gentleman does. And that's what the world needs. Not more people that need to prove something, but more men that are willing to die for something, that have a power that can't be tamed because it's God's direction in their life. Have you done that work? Have you done those battles? A power that's controlled is redemptive. A power that's uncontrolled is destructive. What about you? The next video, we're going to be talking about David. And we're going to see how God made him into a true gentleman as a warrior king. And what happens when that power is unleashed. Here's what I want for you, man. I want you to live unleashed and on mission. If that resonates with you, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification, share this with a brother. You need a band of brothers in your life to walk with you through this whole journey. Whatever it is you're facing, whatever battles you're fighting, and whatever's going on in your life right now, you need other men. If this video spoke to you, please subscribe, share it with somebody else, and live unleashed and on mission.